لا يفرج كربا بات يضنينا ويزرع الورد فينا والرياحينا وينشر الهدي إيمانا وموعظة فبالجهالة قد خابت مساعينا من لا يفرج كربا
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Live with myself, Sulaiman Ravit. Last week we commenced the program by speaking about how fortunate we are that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has made us believers, and how fortunate we are that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has blessed us with this beautiful, comprehensive and perfect deen of Islam. And I want to start on that very note, but just extend it a little further this week by saying that as Muslims in South Africa, after thanking Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala for the bounty of Iman, for the gift of Iman, we also have to thank Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala for the great religious and Islamic infrastructure that we have here in South Africa. And the sacrifice, the dedication, the commitment and the vision of our forebears, our forefathers, our ancestors, when they came to South Africa, to the various parts of the country, and that fikr, that concern that they had, that we need to establish infrastructure, whether it be the masajid, whether it be the makatib, the madrasa system, whatever they did, they made sure that they must establish that infrastructure that will serve not only the religious requirements of that particular time, but would also assist those who would come later, and it would also follow through in their progeny. And as time went along, we saw progress in that regard, alhamdulillah, where later on came the Darul Ulooms, came ulama bodies, came halal certifiers, came Islamic radio stations, now a TV station. And to the extent that we can say, with a great degree of satisfaction, thanking Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, because this is only the blessing and the favor of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala upon this community of South Africa, that today we have become the envy of many Muslim countries in the world. Many Muslims come from countries where they are in the majority, which are known as Muslim countries. And they come to South Africa where Muslims are in a minority, a very tiny minority for that matter. And when they look at the infrastructure, be it educational, be it otherwise, they really marvel at how this has been achieved. And they emulate, in many aspects. South Africa then becomes the benchmark in terms of establishing similar structures in whichever field it may be in other parts of the country, be in other parts of the world rather, be it the Far East, be it Europe, be it the West as well, Canada, the States. South Africa is looked upon in many ways as the benchmark. Now today, inshallah, we'll be focusing on halal certification. It is a discussion that generally when it comes up on a social level or even at media level during interviews, etc., it's a robust discussion, but that in itself I think is a good thing, because it shows that people take halal very seriously and people are very passionate about it. And my guest this evening on Friday Night Live is a very well-known personality in this regard, and that is Moulana Navlakhi, the Theological Director of SANHA. Moulana joins us in studio this evening. Moulana, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakumullah for your time. Much appreciated.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Moulana, we know that you are very busy, and alhamdulillah, you've taken out time from your schedule to talk to us and to enlighten us further with regards halal certification. But before we even go there, Moulana, your name is now, alhamdulillah, very well known in South Africa. Many people know who you are. Many people know about SANHA. But let's go a little back and let's talk about yourself. Perhaps, I know it's a difficult thing, especially for ulama. They don't like to talk about themselves. They rather talk about the work they're doing. They rather talk about the organization that they are serving. But tell us more about yourself. People would like to know about the person.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yes, indeed, this is a very awkward question to introduce yourself. Alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity of graduating with Tahfidh al-Quran at the Madrasa Jami' al-Ulum in Newtown, known as the Newtown Islamic Institute, in the late 70s. And thereafter, with the guidance and direction of our asatidah, we went to pursue higher Islamic education. First, I went to Bury in the UK, and I did my pre-alim course there. Thereafter, I went to Karachi, and I completed the rest of my 8-year training at the Jami' al-Ulum al-Islamiyya in Allama bin Nouri town in Karachi. Upon graduation, we came back and had the opportunity of teaching at the Madrasa Jami' al-Ulum at the Newtown Islamic Institute for several years after my return, and simultaneously also had the privilege and honor of being part of the Jamiatul Ulama's Johannesburg office, alhamdulillah. The Johannesburg office was the second shuttle office of the Jamiatul Ulama at the time. The head office was based at Waterfall Islamic Institute. And the Lenasia office was the first shuttle office, and the second branch was that of the Johannesburg City office, which was headed by the present Secretary General Moulana Ibrahim Bamsab. So, alhamdulillah, half a day we were at the Jamiatul Ulama's office, and at the afternoon we taught at the Madrasa Jami' al-Ulum. During that period of time, we got involved in various activities of the Jamiat, being Ta'aleem with the Ta'aleemi board, also with the publications department, with the Rashid editorial board, and also had the opportunity of serving on the Halal department of the Jamiatul Ulama right up until the formation of the South African National Halal Authority in the year 1996.
Now, picking up from there, Moulana, 1996, SANHA is formed. What led to the formation of SANHA? What was the rationale? What was the vision? And how then did you particularly get involved?
If we look at the halal industry of South Africa pre-1990s, there were several halal certification bodies over and above your ulama bodies in the various respective provinces, the Muslim Judicial Council in the Cape, the Jamiatul Ulama in KwaZulu-Natal, and the Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal at the time, which is the Jamiatul Ulama South Africa now. These were the three major ulama councils and ulama bodies that rendered, amongst other activities, the service of halal certification. There were various other smaller bodies and even individuals issuing certification in various parts of the country, even butchers' associations issuing halal certificates. And prior to 1990, the industry was very regulated, especially the meat industry. The Muslim Judicial Council were primarily Cape-based. However, their certification was far beyond the Cape municipal jurisdiction. The Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal and the Jamiatul Ulama KwaZulu-Natal confined their certification at the time only to the core area of halal, which is the meat industry, the poultry industry and the red meat industry. And because of the strong regulation from the government, where each area had its own municipal abattoir, and you could not purchase any meat products from beyond your municipal area of jurisdiction. So the Witwatersrand area had the municipal abattoir based in City Deep, which slaughtered a huge number, approximately 6,000 sheep daily and a few thousand, 2,000 to 3,000 cattle a day. Similarly, the municipal abattoir in KwaZulu-Natal in Cato Ridge also slaughtered for their area of jurisdiction. It was therefore very easy to control the meat industry in that sense, where everything that was slaughtered at the municipal abattoir was only that which was available to the traders in that particular area. Beyond the area of the meat industry, both the Jamiatul Ulama KwaZulu-Natal and the Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal did not venture into certification of the snack industry and the dairy industry and the various other industries. Their certification was focused mainly at the core of halal, which was the meat industry. The Muslim Judicial Council were the only organization at the time that certified across the board: snack industry, dairy industry, confectionery industry. And when deregulation came about in the early 90s, that was a major challenge, because now traders that were trading within a particular municipal area could now purchase meat from anywhere. Previously, it wasn't allowed to bring meat from other areas into your municipal area. Farmers weren't allowed to have their own little abattoirs built everywhere. The government, they had a contractual agreement with the government that their livestock were brought to the municipal abattoirs. And when this deregulation came into being, it was very, very difficult for the regulators now to be able to control this. It became very difficult for Muslim traders as well, because they needed to have direction as to where they can and where they can't buy meat from. So the ulama, the Jamiatul Ulama, specifically the Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal at the time, commissioned the few members of the business community, who then suggested that we get a consultant, an independent consultant, to meet the various role players and find out from them exactly what the options are for a solution that will be cohesive and that will be workable and practical for the community of this country. A consultant who had legal background and had business administration background met with every role player, business, ulama, all certifiers, interested parties, Muslim organizations, and the solution that they came up with is that the only option and viable option is that we establish a national halal certification body. It took a good period of about 3 years of consultation, meetings between the parties with various role players and stakeholders before the South African National Halal Authority was conceived in the year 1996.
Now, upon the formation of SANHA, what kind of structure was looked at? How did you then enter into that particular structure, and has that structure then evolved over the last decade and a half or so?
Yes, indeed. It was a huge challenge for all parties, because we had people from the trade sector, from the various areas of the country, from the Cape, Northern Natal, Gauteng, and in the new dispensation, obviously, from the 4 provinces that we previously had. We were now faced with representation from 9 provinces. So, yes, there were challenges, and at the initial stage, the main role players were basically the ulama component, which was mainly the Jamiatul Ulama KwaZulu-Natal, the Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal, the Central Islamic Trust, the Northern Cape Ulama, the Northern Cape Halal Board, Eastern Cape Ulama Council, and the Muslim Judicial Council attended those early meetings as well, although they didn't formally enter into the organization at the time. But these were the ulama component on the one hand, and on the other hand we had all the butchers associations, the Cape Butchers Association, the Witwatersrand Butchers Association, Northern Natal Butchers Association, Eastern Cape Butchers Association, and these butchers associations formed the one component of the executive board, and the ulama formed the other component of the executive board. So that was the early formation of the organization. Yes, there were huge challenges that came about. Yes, the Islamic Council of South Africa also embraced the process at the time, although for a very short period, under a year that they were with the South African National Halal Authority, only to go around, establishing their own certification agency within a period of about 7-8 months after formation. So yes, that was the initial structure of the organization.
So you fell into that structure as a representative of the Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal, as it was known then?
Yes. The Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal ceded their entire certification process to the South African National Halal Authority. In the initial period, many of the organizations that joined didn't want to immediately cede certification. They said, let us establish the organization, strengthen the foundation of the organization, before we start ceding certification that we're presently doing. However, the Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal and Natal both very strongly felt at the time that we have to make this organization work, under any circumstance. And they were the 2 bodies that immediately certified, oh yes, the Sunni Ulama Council, the Sunni Jamiatul Ulama were also amongst the role players that were part of SANHA. And the Sunni Jamiatul Ulama were also one of the ulama bodies at the time that immediately ceded their certification to the national certification body. I represented the Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal. Being part of their halal department, they seconded me to be their representative on SANHA.
And did that lead automatically to you taking up the position of theological director, or was there a certain process?
No, there was obviously a process in place where, from the executive board, there were 6 members from each side that were elected. From each organization, 1 individual was elected to serve on the executive board. And from the theological component, that was the ulama organizations, they would elect or select a representative to serve as the theological director. And this responsibility was placed on my head.
Has that structure changed, Moulana, over the years? Is it pretty much the same? Is it the same organizations? Have more organizations come on board? Is there now additional levels in the structure of SANHA?
Yes, there has been some change in the administrative structure of the organization. We had, at the initial time, obviously, the Butchers Association that formed the business component and the ulama organization on the other hand. But as time went along, about after 5-6 years of establishment of the organization, the Butchers Associations decided to withdraw from SANHA to form the National Independent Halal Trust. And thereafter, there was restructuring that took place where other organizations were also invited. The Islamic Medical Association, the Association of Muslim Schools were invited. Then the Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers were invited, who became members and serve on the board till today. Various other role players, including the likes of the Crescent of Hope, also joined the Jamiatul Ulama Western Cape, Majlis Dawah al-Islam of the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape Ulama Council. All these organizations joined subsequently. Since then, obviously, we've had the executive board as a separate tier. We've had the Ulama Council above all the organization, who is the supreme core organ of the organization. Below them is the executive board, and below them is the management board, which is actually the engine of the organization.
Currently, who serves on the Ulama Council, which is on the highest tier?
The ulama organizations all serve on that particular organ. The Jamiatul Ulama South Africa serves on there. Darul Ihsan also serve on the Ulama Council. Then we have the Eastern Cape Ulama Council serving on there. We have Majlis Dawah al-Islam of the Western Cape serving on there. We also have the Central Islamic Trust who serve on the Ulama Council. There's 8 organizations in total that serve on the Ulama component, council component of SANHA.
In terms of below management, the officers and the different role players, what does the structure look like at that level?
Below the management board, obviously, we have the office managers of the regional offices, the Cape Town office, the Johannesburg office, and the Durban office, which deals with KwaZulu-Natal. Each office has its own area of control and regulation. The KwaZulu-Natal office deals with KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape. The Gauteng offices deal with the greater Old Transvaal province, as well as the Free State. And the Western Cape office is responsible for the Western Cape and the Northern Cape region. Each office obviously has various departments inter-office. Each office has its own administration. Then we have the applications department that each office has its own. We have the inspectorate department that each office has its own independent inspectorate, which maintains the certification of plants that have been certified. The National Halal Helpline is based in Gauteng at the Johannesburg office. That's exclusive to the Johannesburg office, and the regulatory department, which has specialists and experts in the field of pharmacy and chemistry, which is also based in Gauteng at the Johannesburg office, and which services and serves all 3 regional offices in the country.
You are watching Friday Night Live. Our guest in studio this evening, the Theological Director of SANHA, Moulana Muhammad Saeed Navlakhi. We go for a break and we'll continue thereafter, inshallah. Welcome back to Friday Night Live. Our guest in studio this evening, Moulana Muhammad Saeed Navlakhi, Theological Director of SANHA. Prior to the break, Moulana spoke about his own history, a short, brief introduction to himself. Moulana spoke about how SANHA started and the different structures and tiers and levels in SANHA, the organization. And I think that gives us a lot of insight. Many times we're just discussing the issues of the day. Whatever the topical issue of that day is, we're discussing it as far as halal certification is concerned, or if it may be specific to SANHA. But we don't get an opportunity really to hear about the history and how these organizations started and what was the vision at that time and what was the whole understanding behind the formation of such organizations. Well, coming on to halal certification, I think you alluded to it earlier on that initially it was about the core, it was about meat and certifying meat. It's gone way beyond that. Sometimes people even object along those lines that why does there need to be certification now when it comes to a toothpick? Why do we need to see the stamp of halal certifier on a bottle of bottled water? It's become in many ways much more vast and much more broader than what it was initially. Perhaps in light of your experience, if you can share some of your thoughts with regards the importance of halal certification, because even now we still have people saying, but why the need to go into all of this detail? Why can't we just go by the traditional method that if you see a Muslim and if it's a person that on the apparent there's no doubt, then why should we doubt? Why should we create doubt? Eat where you see a Muslim and have confidence in the iman of that Muslim.
The issue with regards halal certification, and I think it's just a lack of awareness amongst many, where we feel that only meat products are critical. Yes, meat products are the core, as we mentioned earlier. However, because of the nature of the food industry, because of the development of the food industry over the decades, it's not just a loaf of bread that you buy that has just flour, water, salt, and a bit of yeast inside. There's a whole host of various items that go into just an ordinary loaf of bread, which wasn't there 30 years ago. So I think the awareness has tremendously grown, not only in South Africa, but I think globally. Malaysia as a Muslim country, Indonesia as a Muslim country, mainly have for the past 2 decades been pushing the halal agenda globally, because they are huge importers of products, and regrettably other parts of the Muslim world haven't been as strong and vociferous on this matter as the Southeast Asian bloc has been. So the awareness has been created globally. With regard to South Africa, yes, alhamdulillah, the core of halal, which is the meat industry, has been looked after and preserved by our ulama long before even Malaysia and Indonesia established their regulatory processes. People like the Jamiatul Ulama, organizations like the Jamiatul Ulama Transvaal, which was established in 1923, in the early years already started guiding people towards this, and formally in the 60s and 70s, when the opportunity arose to formally align ourselves with the municipal abattoirs, they were in the forefront and had the license for religious slaughter arranged by the government. So South Africa has an old history, maybe going back to the 30s and 40s, when the Muslim Judicial Council, in fact, started their certification processes at the time. So we have an old history, I think perhaps the oldest in the world. Awareness has obviously only grown with regards other areas of the food industry, I would say approximately in the last 2 decades, from the late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, when the halal certification departments of the various organizations were exposed to different areas of the food industry, understood that it's not only meat. You can buy a tub of yogurt and have an animal ingredient used in there. You can buy a loaf of bread and have a human hair ingredient used in there. You can buy a block of cheese and have a pork enzyme used in there. So there's a whole host of areas. You can buy a tub of ice cream, and have wine or sherry used in there. You can buy a Black Forest cake. In the old days, I remember Fontana's bakery in Hillbrow area was so famous. We used to all go and buy Black Forest cake from there. not even knowing whether any alcohol was being used in the process, only coming to know some 2 decades later that alcohol is one of the core ingredients used in the confectionery industry as well. So I think there has just not been adequate exposure over the years, and this has grown tremendously. I think from the formation of SANHA in the early 90s right up until now, the amount of awareness that not only ulama have accumulated over the period, I think little children also have been so educated that even a child that is conscious or that's brought up in that environment will be very vigilant when they go to a supermarket or to a cafe or a restaurant to buy food or any food product.
The constant issue that comes to the fore, Moulana, it's been perpetuated by certain publications that are known to be very hostile and very extreme, but sometimes one gets it also from the man on the street, that this is just a whole money-making exercise in the name of halal and in the name of halal certification. Organizations are making millions.
I think that is definitely a myth, because in terms of halal certification, yes, there are costs that are attached to it. There are costs that are attached to the services rendered by the various organizations, whether it's administrative costs. I mean, SANHA has a staff of 130 employees. Other organizations would also have some, perhaps not at the same level. But yes, all these expenses are there. So you're looking at 3/4 to R1,000,000 expenditure, core expenditure, traveling expenditure, running of your offices, your staff membership. So there are costs attached to it. We can either have a situation where you don't charge any fees and you tax the Muslim community for this particular service, and the beneficiary, yes, Muslims benefit that they are getting halal products, but the monetary beneficiary is the industry. And the services rendered for the industry, who by virtue of having certification are able to market their products to a very much more broader consumer base. And therefore, they are willing to pay the cost for it. So the amounts being exorbitant, have at the initial years been thrown around, but we've published our costs that are involved, for certification per plant, per restaurant, per factory. So once this myth was dispelled, then obviously came about the other myth that there is no need for certification. Every Muslim individual has the responsibility of going around and determining whether he can or can't eat a product on his own. It's his own responsibility. If we extend that to various other areas of our daily lives, whether it's education, whether it's social welfare, whether it's relief, we probably have to close down every other organization, every institution in this country. So really it is for those that are unbiased, for those that understand the needs of the community, and even I think for those that are biased, they truly really know the importance of halal certification, the importance of food regulation. But it's just our personal interpolitics, I think, that really motivates this type of negative debate.
Just to give an example, Moulana, if I were to open up a Wimpy store in Indonesia, and as a result I would have a SANHA certificate on the wall there, and all customers coming in would be able to see that certificate, what would I pay a month, plus minus?
The licensing fee for such a store is about 385 Rand presently, which includes inspection costs, travel costs that the inspector makes to the store, and the inspector's time. So the costs are really very, very minimal. It's kept to a bare minimal. In fact, many a times we're subsidizing costs because your travel cost is more than the licensing fee that you're actually receiving every month.
So besides the 385, there's no other fee? No additional
There's no other, yes, the initial certification fee there is, where there's an application fee, raw material evaluation costs, preliminary site audit costs. Sometimes they buy a restaurant that has previously been a haram restaurant. and we need to do sanitization, cleansing, wash down, under supervision. So there are those costs involved. But in terms of the ongoing licensing fee that a restaurant like a Wimpy or Steers or any other franchise restaurant would pay is presently around 385 Rand.
And for 385 Rand, how many inspections approximately per month, and what else, what other services would SANHA be providing?
In terms of, that is purely a basic licensing fee. We don't charge them a separate fee for inspection costs, a separate fee for travel costs. Neither do we charge them for listing their businesses on the website or even mentioning them in our various publications. So all those marketing issues are really at no cost to the business certification body. They obviously get exposures through various media as well as through our national helpline, where we receive almost 100 calls a day, where travelers that are traveling into a particular area would phone and ask, are there any restaurants in the Centurion area that I'm visiting, or in a particular mall that we're in at the moment. Those costs are absolutely absorbed by the organization directly.
I understand that, Moulana, but I think what I'm trying to get at is that if one sees a certificate on the wall of a takeaway or a Wimpy restaurant, what should we understand? What goes behind that certificate? In other words, before you grant that certificate and to continuously have that certificate on the wall, one would assume there's inspections. How regular? And besides inspections, what else are you checking on to ensure that whatever is served there is halal?
Let's take the typical example of a restaurant which has certification. If it's a Muslim-owned restaurant, we don't have an inspector or a supervisor placed on site. If it's a non-Muslim-owned restaurant, we will employ our own person to be there on site to monitor the halal program on an ongoing basis. So that in that instance, there would be an additional staff employment cost, which we would also charge the company. But a normal restaurant, that is a Muslim-owned restaurant, pays this licensing fee, gets a regular monthly inspection, and prior to that, in getting that restaurant certified, the franchisor, we enter into an agreement with the franchisor, which is the head office company, and all their suppliers that they are utilizing for that particular franchise are audited, monitored, regulated to ensure that whatever is supplied to the store on an ongoing basis is halal and in accordance with the halal program set out in the agreement contract. There are obviously ongoing developments that the restaurant franchise company will make when new products are introduced, promotional items are introduced from time to time, and that lies on with the office, between the development department of the particular franchise company and the office is continuous. So prior to the product even being launched and served to the consumers, those products are screened and approved by the organization.
Again, using Lenasia as an example, if I were to open a butchery, what would the monthly cost be for certification?
The butchery licensing fee is 300 Rand a month, which also includes your regular inspections, which also includes evaluating raw materials, new products, new suppliers that they want to use. There is no other additional cost, whether it's a travel cost or an inspection cost that is attached.
I ask the question from the perspective of the consumer, that people sometimes ask, why is there a need for halal certification? We would go by trust. If it's a Muslim, we would eat. Reversing the scenario, at times you hear those who own these restaurants or who own these butcheries who say, look, I have a conscience. I know that how important it is for people to eat halal. I know what the consequences would be if I were to feed people haram. Not only would my income be compromised, but I would be held liable for feeding Muslims that which is not permissible for them to consume. Why do I need certification? If I start a restaurant, if I open a butchery, if I'm dealing in meat products, for example, in my supermarket, I trust myself. I know I'm not going to give anybody haram to eat, so I don't need certification.
I think if anybody makes such a claim, they either are unaware of the complexities of the industry that they're involved in, because it is impossible for any trader, whether you're a butchery, whether you're a meat processor, whether you're a baker, or whether you're an ice cream manufacturer, to know exactly all your suppliers and to know, yes, you may know your suppliers, but what your suppliers use. Take the particular example of a butchery that you mentioned earlier. The butcher does not buy his animals live and slaughter them himself. He buys them from a wholesale. The wholesaler may be a Muslim wholesaler or a non-Muslim wholesaler. Where does that wholesaler get his meat products from? He gets it from an abattoir or various abattoirs. What is happening at those abattoirs? Even the Muslim wholesaler doesn't have any control over the abattoirs that he buys from, neither does he have any representation. Majority of these abattoirs are all non-Muslim owned abattoirs. So the whole chain needs to be monitored on an ongoing basis in order to be able to give that guarantee that the product that I am selling in my business, I have full satisfaction and I know exactly fully well that the product has been slaughtered and processed halal. Furthermore, if you take an ordinary meat product, whether it's a beef patty or whether it's a other processed meat product, there's a whole host of ingredients that go into that particular product. Where do they come from? What goes into the making of those particular ingredients? It's a whole specialized field. You need people on the ball and a hands-on approach to be able to guide you. We've had instances where Muslim businessmen have mentioned to us that, look, I'm a Muslim, but I don't see the need for certification. Please come to my restaurant and you look around. We found in so many restaurants that were not certified, we found basting brushes being used. In so many Muslim bakeries, we found basting brushes being used, which were pork bristle brushes. Now, a simple thing like just a piece of equipment, even if everything's fine, you are contaminating every product that you are touching with that najis, impure pork bristle brush. Now, not even going into ingredients. Sauces, we buy a mushroom sauce. Nobody even realizes that the flavoring that is used in that particular mushroom sauce contains an animal beef extract. Now, if you look at the bottle itself, you see it's a salad dressing. What could be in that salad dressing? If you look at the ingredients, there's absolutely nothing. There's vegetable oil, and there's spices, and there's egg white, and neutral ingredients of that nature. But every ingredient is not necessarily disclosed. Manufacturing aids are not disclosed on the product. Salad dressings we've picked up, which we all have been relishing over the decades, not even realizing, but in salad dressing they were using an enzyme from a pork sauce, which prevented the egg white from coagulating and cooking in the manufacturing process. So I think it's far more than what meets the eye.
Interesting and enlightening indeed. Our guest this evening in studio, Theological Director of SANHA, Moulana Navlakhi, explaining to us how halal certification works and the details of what transpires behind the scenes. We go for a break and we will continue thereafter, inshallah. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Friday Night Live. In studio with us this evening, Theological Director of SANHA, Moulana Navlakhi. Moulana, we've discussed main issue and it's really been enlightening and interesting and educational. Tell us how the rest of the world looks upon halal certification in South Africa. Obviously, you're talking from the perspective of SANHA. How do we compare? What do others tell you? You travel quite extensively. You go to Malaysia, you go to Indonesia. In this 15 odd years, 16 odd years that SANHA has been in existence, and if you want to take it beyond that from the time of the MJC in the 40s, being a Muslim minority in South Africa, how do we compare with some of the big boys, some of the Muslim majority countries?
South Africa has a very unique position with regards to halal certification, like various other fields, whether it be that of education, whether it be that of welfare, relief, etc. The world acknowledges our position, and that is because of our very unified structure in South Africa that we've had in various fields, and very cohesive structure that we've established over the years. If we take the field of halal certification specifically, South Africa is among the only Muslim minority countries where halal certification has not been carried out or conducted for purposes of exporting products to Muslim countries. If we look at other Muslim minority countries, whether it's Europe, whether it's the Americas, whether it's the oceanic regions, New Zealand, Australia, etc., these countries have primarily initiated the Halal Certification service for the export industry. The Middle East or Southeast Asian countries, other Muslim countries that needed halal certified products from those countries motivated and generated the establishment of these organizations that do halal certification. South Africa is very different in that our halal certification was primarily set up for our own community. Whether it's from the 40s or whether it's now in the 90s and 2000s, our certification up until today is mainly for our own community. If you go to various other countries, you will find that even if you ask for a halal certified butchery or a halal certified restaurant, you might not have. But there are tons and tons, or thousands of tons of meat products and other products that are exported as halal to other countries, whereas the Muslim community of that area don't have any regulation or any real assurance with regards to products that they purchase themselves. So we're unique in that, and the world acknowledges that. And alhamdulillah, over the last 2 decades that we've been involved at an international level since the formation of SANHA, with Malaysia, Indonesia, the Middle Eastern region, where there's been huge interaction. People have visited our country and definitely have a lot of respect for the amount of work that has been done by the organizations in South Africa.
You've also started an office in Pakistan.
That has been, yes, by default we had to start up an office there really. Some 7-8 years ago we had Muslim businessmen that visited the SARTEX trade exhibition in South Africa and had an opportunity to meet with SANHA members on that particular occasion, and were amazed at the fact that we have such an organized structure, whereas Pakistan being a Muslim country, those traders were experiencing great difficulty with identifying whether their products and raw materials that they were importing from Europe and other countries were in fact halal or not. They were also having difficulty in exporting products made in Pakistan to countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, simply because of the fact that they wanted their products that are imported into those countries to come in with bona fide credible halal certification. So with much persistence, they got us to agree to assist them, and we assisted the first company called Young's Food and Shangri-La Foods. They were a joint company at the time, now they're separated. But we assisted them, and that was the first company that we certified in Pakistan some 7-8 years ago. And since then, there's just been an increase of companies coming on over the years. So there's close to 20, if not more than 20 companies already, which have been certified by SANHA. And that called for the opening of local offices. So we've got an office established in both major cities, Karachi and Lahore. And we've had ulama that were down in South Africa for training, who spent approximately 3-4 months here at our offices, got trained, and now, alhamdulillah, are rendering the service in that part of the world as well.
Moving on to some of the more contentious issues, if I may put it that way, Moulana. A few years back, we had the whole rainbow chicken saga. I don't want to go into the details of that, but many of our viewers would remember that. It was a time of great controversy. There were allegations, counter-allegations. It was a very loud debate. I can remember Indonesia at street corners, at robots, pamphlets were being given out. There were very robust and intense radio discussions and debates that took place. The details of all of that aside, honestly speaking, did it do damage? Was there reputational damage as far as SANHA is concerned? And the second part to that question, what did you learn from that particular process? What did you take forward as an organization going out of what must have been a very trying time for you at SANHA?
Really, it wasn't just a trying time for SANHA. I think it was a trying time for the Muslim community of South Africa. over and above just the halal certification bodies, because people were in a state of total chaos and confusion because of the type of allegations that were being thrown around by detractors of the cause. But alhamdulillah, I think it only made the organization stronger. It only strengthened the whole process of halal certification, where people became more and more aware and asked more and more questions, and gave us an opportunity to explain to them exactly how things are done at abattoirs. So there's been this great awareness as a result of that particular one so-called negative incident that occurred some 4 or 5 years ago. But alhamdulillah, I think there hasn't been any reputational risk of that nature, because there wasn't any fact attached to the allegations that were being thrown around. They were in the realm of rumor mongering, and alhamdulillah were adequately dealt with by the various stakeholders in the process.
How different to that was, or how similar was that to the Orion saga, late 2011, early 2012? Do you see any similarities, or would you say it is distinctly different?
No, I would definitely say it's distinctly different. The two incidents were totally different from the other. The one was purely, an attack on the commercial poultry industry as a whole, on the processes used in the slaughtering of poultry, the stunning processes, etc. Whereas this was a blatant crime committed against the Muslim community and against the general consumers of this land, where the trader involved relabeled products, kangaroo as beef and pork as beef, and animal feed powder as skim milk powder. So I think the crimes and the incidents were totally different from one another.
Although you say that, but what happened in the aftermath of the original scandal, which had to do with Orion itself and Gatner, the owner and the director of Orion, but then all the question marks with regards to certification and the MJC, and then SANHA's role, and then allegations, counter-allegations that SANHA had instigated all of this to perhaps profile other certifying bodies in a negative light. What happened, justified or not justified, ultimately at ground level in discussions on radio platforms, social media, one got the clear sense that there were huge question marks with regards halal certification and halal certifying bodies in the minds of people, because the debate broadened, and it broadened very quickly. From Orion, it became MJC. From MJC, it became halal certifiers, and from halal certifiers, it even went up to ulama bodies.
Mm. Yes, I think it unfortunately came across that way. But I think if we look at the core of the Orion issue, it was blatant fraud committed by this businessman. Yes, there had been shortcomings in the process of control and regulation, which gave this criminal an opportunity to perpetrate such crime. But I don't think at any point in time, was this whole thing staged by SANHA. And I think if anybody looks at this from a cold front, you could see exactly the manner in which it was brought up to our attention, the manner in which it was addressed. By us working with the MJC at the initial stage, obviously later some parties perhaps convinced the MJC that for whatever reason, for whatever sinister reason, that SANHA were the organization, in fact, that tried to upstage the MJC. But there's absolutely no truth to that at all.
Subsequent to that, the MJC opened itself to scrutiny, and there was a panel that was formed, and they looked into the processes of the MJC, and they had their findings. I don't want to go into the details of that in this program, because the purpose is just to have a discussion pertaining to the overview of SANHA. But the point I want to get to is, after that process, there were calls made from certain bodies and from some individuals as well, that perhaps other certifying bodies should also open themselves up to such an audit. Would you be willing to consider that kind of request favorably? Is SANHA willing to open itself up and say, fine, we have no problem if anyone has concerns, if there's a formation of a panel that wants to look at the processes of SANHA?
You know, alhamdulillah, I think SANHA doesn't even have to wait for such an occasion to come about, because firstly, our membership is one that is not confined to a particular group. We have membership from across the country, various organizations that sit on the executive, that serve on the management board. There's a huge amount of transparency in the way we go about doing things, in our certification processes, in the fees that we charge, in the plants that we've certified, in the income that we generate, in the expenditure that the organization incurs each year. So this is a continuous process that we undergo each year, and all the time, having so many different members from so many different quarters and different organizations and different backgrounds that make up the organization. So that process is ongoing, and we definitely, not for a single moment do we feel flustered by the fact that anybody wants to have any information of the organization.
There's always this talk about why 4 halal certifiers, and people link that to the whole broader discussion about unity and say, this is a sign of disunity, that we can't have one halal certifying body in South Africa. And there's constantly this perception, again, justified or not, that the halal bodies are at each other's throats. It's a competitive rather than a complementary relationship. Would you like to see one halal certifying body? Do you feel there's a need for one halal certifying body? Do you feel that by having 4, it's actually an obstacle rather than an assistance to the overall cause?
Yes, the ideal situation, and I think the formation of SANHA was to establish a single, unified, cohesive body in the country. So the ideal situation definitely would be that we have one certification body. Having more than one certification body is not a problem. Competition also is not a problem, where you try and be better than each other, try and render a better service to both the industry and the consumer. So there's no issue with that. And whether we're 4 or whether we're another 15, Australia's got almost 20 odd organizations doing halal certification. America's got just a little more than that, perhaps. Europe has got maybe twice that amount. But there is no issue with the number of certification bodies. The issue purely of concern is that each certification body should be serious about what they do, and they should operate on a common certification standard. You cannot have a situation where one organization operates on a particular standard and the other organization operates on a lesser standard. And that is where the confusion comes about.
I suppose if we want to go forward with that idea, the key question would be then who then determines the standards?
Well, the standards have been determined by whether it's ulama bodies across the globe, whether it's leading halal certification bodies like the Majlis Ulama Indonesia and the Jabatan Kemajuan Islam, which is the certification body of Malaysia. These people have been forerunners in actually formalizing halal certification standards. So I think the important thing, and yes, it's not that we don't have standards in South Africa. Everybody understands what is required. But I think in the process and in the enthusiasm of getting certification done is where we find that compromises are being made at the expense of the halal certification program.
How would you respond to the claim that SANHA is very condescending in its approach, in its attitude as far as its fellow halal certifying bodies are concerned? There are those who say that sometimes when responding to questions as to whether a product is fit for consumption by Muslims or not, if certified by another organization, by another certifying body, one gets the impression the undertone is one of which suggests that, if it's certified by SANHA, you can be rest assured that all is above board. But if it's certified by any of the other bodies, then, there's bound to be a question mark. Although that's not said in words, many have that perception. They feel that's the undertone. They feel that's the overall attitude of SANHA, a very condescending one.
Sometimes it's perceived to be that way, but I think that's the fact of the matter is that products that meet the standard, irrespective of who they are certified by, SANHA would, if they are satisfied, give the appropriate response to say yes, the product is approved, though not certified by SANHA. Obviously, there are a myriad of products where we're aware of problem areas, or where the standards that we aspire to are not being met. Then the consumer that calls the organization is looking for your direction, and then we're obliged to tell them that that product is not approved, or it contains a gelatin of non-halal slaughtered animals, or whatever the case may be. Yes, outwardly it may be perceived as if we're undermining another certification body, but that's just purely expressing our position on that particular product.
Do you have confidence in the other certifying bodies, MJC, NIHT, NITE, ICSA? If you see a product that has the label of any one of those certifying bodies, would you eat with confidence?
That is rather a curved ball that you're throwing at me, but indeed, if we're satisfied with the bona fides of that product and the certification process, yes, we would eat such a product. Where we have reservations, based on the information that we have, then definitely we would exercise caution.
So it's not an overall confidence; it's on a product-by-product, case-by-case basis.
Yes, that's unfortunately, due to our experience, in this particular field over the years, that is the position that we had to adopt.
Going forward, Moulana, there are those who feel that halal certification needs to be broadened even further, even though it has been broadened to a great extent, from just looking at the core, which was meat, to many other products and ingredients within products. There are those who feel that it should not be purely about whether something is halal for consumption or not. Hygiene needs to be looked at, ethics needs to be looked at. I think perhaps the most prominent example in that regard would be, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was that chilla product, that controversy and the debate about the raw material coming, or some extract coming from Israel, and the whole Palestinian issue. Do you think going forward now in terms of halal certification, halal certifiers need to start broadening their outlook?
I think, in terms of halal, we must understand halal is not something that we thumbsuck, but I think there are clear perimeters that have been set by the Sharia with regards that which is permitted and that which is unlawful. So I think that is the core focus of all halal certification bodies. Identifying the permissibility, the legality or illegality of a particular product, and advising the consumers accordingly. Whether a product is good for the health, whether it's Coca-Cola for that matter, or whether it's some other soft drink beverage, how healthy is that particular product? Should we be certifying products that are not healthy enough? Or whether it's the fast food industry, everybody knows, the health problems with the fast food industry, and whether it's obesity or whether it's diabetes, whether it's cholesterol, etc., that are all attached to these type of foods. I think there is no end then. So we have to restrict and limit ourselves to whether a product, in terms of its intrinsic nature, is legal, is lawful, or it's unlawful. Health issues or nutritional issues, I think that's the prerogative and left to the discretion of the individual, whether you would like to buy a product because it has some connotation to Israel, or whether it's attached to the United States of America, or whether it's attached to any other country which one has a political issue with. I think those issues should be left to the discretion of the individual.
Finally, Moulana, we're out of time. In 1 minute, where would you like to see SANHA in 15 years' time? And what's your concluding remarks and message to all the viewers out there?
I think our vision really is that we are able to, especially within South Africa, create an environment and a commitment by all the regulators to join hands in establishing a standard of certification which can facilitate easy consumption for anybody. So you know this confusion that we presently have, where a product is certified halal, but the products are coming from Denmark, it's machine slaughtered, or there's a possibility that the ingredients haven't been looked at carefully, or the regulatory process isn't stringent enough to give consumers that assurance. I think if we what we hope to achieve, inshallah, within the next decade is at least try through the processes of the World Halal Council or through the World Halal Forums that are arranged by Malaysia and Indonesia, is to try and establish a standard that will be acceptable, firstly, not only acceptable, but implemented by all halal certification bodies, inshallah.
Muhammad Sayyid Navlakhi, Jazakumullah for your time, much appreciated. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala reward you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There you have it, viewers. Moulana Muhammad Sayyid Navlakhi, the Theological Director of SANHA, joining us this evening on Friday Night Live. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Inshallah, we'll meet again next week, same time, same place. Until then, fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بالجهالة قد خابت مساعينا، لا يفرج كربا بات يضنينا، ويزرع الورد فينا والرياحينا، وينشر الهدي إيمانا وموعظة